Was straight fire.
Excuse me, are you Samuel Nicholas, the owner of this joint?
Damn right it is. How can I help you?
We need some badass motherfuckers that are definitely not pussies.
I've got just the crew you're looking for right over there.
Okay, that's fucking awesome. We'll take them all.
And just like that, the Continental Congress authorized the Marines in 1775, made Sam Nicholas their founding captain, who recruited America's most badass motherfuckers, straight out of bars like Tun Tavern. And these dudes were always down for crazy ass shit. When ships got close enough, they jumped onto enemy ships like a bunch of psychos, just to have fun and kill some redcoat dirtbag. After the Revolutionary War, the Marines were disbanded.
Oh, come on!
It's over. Nothing is over!
But then, just like today, a bunch of dirty, ugly, illegal African pirate thieves were pissing us off. So guess who was called back?
Hoorah!
The motherfucking Marines. Only 7 Marines and some wannabe mercenaries crossed 500 miles of African desert to attack the pirates on their home turf during the Barbary Wars.
Now, if you want to see the rest of this video, you must subscribe. You will support History Dad because he has 2 kids and a smoking hot wife who's totally out of his league. This retard needs so much help, he's making subscription videos on Instagram.
Okay. I thought it was worth a watch. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Viewers Discretion. I am your host, Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic, in case you haven't seen the updates, in case you haven't seen that. I have been dealing, really for the last, 24 hours with, a terrible stomach bug that has just knocked me out and exhausted me and drained me and whatever. So I planned on doing a show. Initially, the schedule was to have one last night and then to have 2 today. And last night I was feeling very tired. And through the night, it just got worse and worse. I was up all night long. So, yeah, basically, and then I just conked out. I was like, let me do one late afternoon. And then I just passed out till 10 o'clock. And I was like, holy hell, this is terrible. I told people I'm going to be somewhere. I'm not there. That's awful. That's inexcusable. But that is what happened. So I apologize to those of you who were expecting me to be around, because I wasn't. And yeah, I'm still feeling I feel much, much stronger now than I did before. That nap I took this evening really helped a lot. But you see I'm in my sweats because I'm just sort of in. This is a sweatshirt that Lady Logic got for me for my birthday, I don't know, 4 years ago. A long time, when I first started off doing live streams, which I rarely wear, but I thought it was cute. So anyhow, tonight's main focus is on Robert Mueller. In case you haven't heard, he's dead. And we've heard the name Robert Mueller so many times. And I started hearing about all these different scandals and cover-ups that he was associated with. And I was always like, much of his work, we all know, obviously, about, the infamous Mueller report. And I can tell you a lot about that. But I think there's a lot to the story of Robert Mueller that most people don't know. Or most people, I think most people today, I think a lot of people just don't realize who this guy was and why it is that he's just so hated. I mean, fine, I understand you might not like what he did with the Mueller report and how he seemed it was hard to make out of what he was saying. Is he trying to go after Trump? Is he not trying to go after Trump? He's exonerating Trump, but he says explicitly he's not exonerating Trump. The whole situation was just it was just a very weird situation where everyone's trying to make heads or tails out of his very conflicting, kind of confusing report, which cost countless millions of dollars to generate. And a lot of people just don't know about his history. Frankly, I'll tell you, I want to be clear with you. Until like 10 years ago or so, I was not really into politics that hardcore. Like when I was in my early 30s, in my 30s, I wasn't really into politics that much. I really got into it later in life. So a lot of the things that he was embroiled with politically, I was just what many of you might refer to as being a normie. I was just like, I don't know, like I don't care. So I really never was, even though I was alive for his, pretty much his entire career, his entire political career. I certainly wasn't following his exploits. And it's only now that when I heard about his passing and I saw the conflicting reactions, I was like, I really want to explore more about the Bob Mueller story and why it is that he's so hated. And by the time we're done, I think you'll probably come to the conclusion that he's very properly hated. The guy was very two-faced in a lot of different roles throughout his life, a lot of different roles. This is not just about the Mueller report and how he went after Trump. He basically was the anti-MAGA before there even was a MAGA. He was Mr. Cover-Up. That's what he spent his life doing. Oh, thank you, Pam. That's very thoughtful of you. Much obliged. So that's why I think it's important for us to break it down. But first, we'll start with like what his friends are saying about him. And as you can judge someone by their friends. Barack Obama saying Bob Mueller was one of the finest directors in the history of the FBI, transforming the Bureau after 9/11 and saving countless lives. But it was his relentless commitment to the rule of law and his unwavering belief in our bedrock values that made him one of the most respected public servants of our time. Michelle and I send our condolences to Bob's family and everyone who knew him and admired him. It's hard to find people who knew and admired him. It was just a thing. The comments on this are very telling. Molly Hemingway, who herself, I would not classify her as your typical MAGA. She's an attorney, and she has a very big account, 1.5 million followers. I think she's an attorney. I'm almost positive she's an attorney. She weighs in on legal stuff a lot. And she points out this is far and away the worst, most vile presidential comment today on the man who was the titular head of a horrific operation to destroy countless lives, overturn a presidential election, and obliterate any trust whatsoever in federal government. That's what he was. That was his raison d'etre. She states it very well. The Politi Bunny is saying, maybe you missed this, but lots of people are calling you an a-hole on this post. Yeah. Spoken like the first gay, foreign-born black president of our country. Fixed it. Bob Mueller was one of the most corrupt directors in the history of the FBI, transforming a once respected law enforcement agency into a hyper-political disaster. But it was his relentless obsession with destroying our great President Trump that made him one of the most respected political witch hunters in the history of the Democrat Party. He failed in his attempt to destroy Trump via the Russia collusion hoax. Michelle and I forgive him and send our condolences to Bob's family and everyone who knew him, and the very few who admired him. That's very well written. I like that. I like little Donald Trump weighing up. And she shares here Donald J. Trump saying, Robert Mueller just died. Good. I'm glad he's dead. He can no longer hurt innocent people. President Donald J. Trump. Wow. That's harsh. President of the United States. Good. I'm glad he's dead. People don't talk this plainly. Our president does. Glad he's dead. Can no longer, but he tells you why. Can no longer hurt innocent people. And that's what he did. He hurt innocent people. A lot of innocent people. And invariably, as we're going to see, engaged in a lot of different cover-ups. And you could just see the hate that that Barack Obama. This is all under the Barack Obama's post here. The hate that he got for this. Robert Mueller was a puppet. I don't know that there's a cover up about his death. I was 81, but yeah. But it does, and Brian Krasenstein, the Democrat shill here, saying thank you for not celebrating his death like some other imbecile did, like every other person did. Everyone else. You can see a lot of hate. A lot of hate. Anyhow. In Sherry Uncut's post, she breaks down about the Trump investigation. Robert Mueller's special counsel investigation caused serious harm to many people. Key facts based largely on the Steele dossier, which, if you're watching here, I'm sure you know what the Steele dossier is, which was funded by the Clinton campaign and Democrats, later exposed as unreliable and filled with unverifiable allegations. The Durham report and DOJ Inspector General found major FBI misconduct, insufficient basis to launch a probe, 17 significant errors, omissions in FISA warrants on Carter Page, and ignored evidence that cleared people. If it cleared them, we don't want to know about it. Nearly $32 million spent after 2 years, no evidence of conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia. Ruined finances of Trump associates and families with zero Russian involvement. Many went bankrupt from legal costs. Triggered dozens of deaths against innocents, including children advisors like Michael Caputo. I don't know much about the Michael Caputo story. Took place amid the pressure that led GOP operative Peter W. Smith to commit suicide in 2017 while being scrutinized over Clinton email efforts. Spare me the pro-clutching over my president's response. Investigation destroyed lives based on fraudulent premise. Yeah. So I want to share with you here a breakdown of all the different ways that he was so just aggravating. Consider this. The reason you hire someone to be a special prosecutor, or a special investigator, whatever his role was, to look into the, Trump-Russia collusion is to help bring clarity. That's what the objective is, to help bring clarity. So if you spend 2 years doing it and you cannot bring clarity, you're a fail. And the reason you couldn't bring clarity is because he was so determined to not exonerate him. He was terrified that this would serve to exonerate Trump. So this hoax, which was initiated by Barack Obama while he was still president, when he ordered the intelligence communities to create a report which would tie Russia to Trump, or at the very least implicate Trump as far as being, popular with the Russians, which we have no evidence that was even ever true. Quite the contrary. You would think the Russians would prefer a weak leader rather than a strong leader, and Trump is clearly a much stronger leader than Hillary Clinton could ever dream of being. So the only reason that there'd be a lack of clarity is his refusal to actually state things plainly, which is there was no relationship between Trump and Russia. And all of their digging only helped establish that. There was nothing there whatsoever. But he refused to even bring that clarity. Even when he was finished, some people on the left, many people on the left to this day, still believe that there was some sort of connection there. So here's a breakdown from his House hearing. It starts with Mike Johnson, who was not the Speaker of the House at the time of this hearing, asking him questions and showing just how slippery he was. And frankly, as we're going to see during the course of this show, he spent his entire life engaging in one cover-up after another.
Take him out. Mr. Ratcliffe asked you earlier this morning, quote, can you give me an example other than Donald Trump where the Justice Department determined that an investigated person was not exonerated because their innocence was not conclusively determined, unquote? You answered, I cannot. Sir, that is unprecedented.
Well, he's admitting it's unprecedented. He specifically said, this report does not exonerate Trump. Why would you say such a thing? The entire point to a probe is not to exonerate. Say, is there anything here or not? And then we default back to innocence or proven guilty. So drop all your claims. But he specifically has to say this doesn't exonerate him. Why? Why would you say that? You had nothing there.
Your investigators also failed to interview Stephen Schrage, an American citizen who helped organize the event and invited Carter Page to it. Is that correct?
Can you repeat the question?
Whether or not you interviewed Stephen Schrage, who organized the Cambridge.
In those areas, I am going to stay away from.
Which DOJ policy or principle sets forth a legal standard that an investigated person is not exonerated if their innocence from criminal conduct is not conclusively determined?
Can you repeat the last part of that question?
Yeah. Which DOJ policy or principle set forth a legal standard that an investigated person is not exonerated? Yeah. Which DOJ innocence from criminal conduct is not conclusively determined? Where does that language come from, Director? Where is the DOJ policy that says that?
Where is it? Where are you coming up with that? That you threw that in here?
Let me make it easier.
Go ahead.
Can you give me an example other than Donald Trump where the Justice Department determined that an investigated person was not exonerated because their innocence was not conclusively determined?
His job is not to find his innocence. See, that's the stupidest thing about all this. His role was never to find his innocence. His role was to see whether there was enough there to charge him. That's a different thing from trying to find someone's innocence. No prosecutor is out there trying to establish innocence. They're not looking into innocence. So he makes it as if this was part of his task. And it's like, he also didn't establish whether the 2000 Baltimore Ravens were the best defense ever. That doesn't mean they weren't. Well, we can't prove a conclusion. You weren't even looking at that. You weren't looking at whether or not he's innocent. You were just looking at whether there's enough there to charge, which you found there ain't at all anything. By the way, I noticed on Civil in the chat, and I sent him a link. I don't know if you check your DMs frequently, but I did send you a link if you're interested in coming in here talking about Robert Mueller.
I cannot, but this is a unique situation.
Well, you can't. Time is short. I've got 5 minutes. Let's just leave it at you can't find it because I'll tell you why. It doesn't exist.
I don't believe. I think that is correct.
Mr. Mueller, I want to focus on one word in your report. It's the second to the last word in the report. It's exonerate. The report states, accordingly, while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it does not exonerate him. Now, in the judicial.
That's like, why would you throw those words in there? That's the whole thing. Why would you put that? And it's the final sentence. People look for the conclusions at the end. So everyone's reading that. Oh, he's not exonerating. Oh, he's not exonerating. So it's a way of germinating this story beyond the conclusion of the report being made public. When your whole objective was to try to bring clarity and you're purposefully trying to create a conversation, continue the conversation, that's slimy. It's very, very slimy.
Hearing in your prior testimony, you've already agreed with Mr. Radcliffe that exonerate is not a legal term, that there is not a legal test for this. So I have a question for you, Mr. Mueller.
Hey. How
Hello.
you doing?
I'm doing reasonably well. How are you?
Thank God, can't complain. You look like you got like a little burn there or something.
No,
okay.
just my common redness that tends to flare from time to time. It's the rosacea. Sometimes it flares and sometimes it doesn't.
You get roseola?
It is what it is, man.
So how you been? It's been a minute.
I've been good, man.
Yeah?
I made lemon pound cake today in honor of Afro Man on the third stream.
Nice.
So that was good. Made it from scratch. I think it's the first time I've ever made baking from complete scratch.
Really?
So that was an interesting experience. It turned out pretty good.
All right.
And the workouts continue to go well, and I'm generally happy.
Do you think if your house is ever raided by the Adams County Sheriff, it's good enough that they'll pause, put down the Glock?
I don't know, man. I don't know if it's mama quality. I'm not sure about
mama
that.
Quality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But I used fresh lemon zest and I used a little bit of bourbon in there for a bourbon flavor, and it was really nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So you have thoughts on Robert Mueller's passing?
I did find the comments from Trump to be not in good taste. I will say that. I mean, you can not like him professionally, but I don't think that, that comment was warranted.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, if he spent his life hurting people, would you think it's a good thing for him to be gone?
Well, I mean, it's not quite the same. I mean, we're not. If we're talking about like someone who's like murdering people, then I think it's a slightly different scenario.
Okay. But what if it's government type of hurting people?
I don't really know enough about his motivations and stuff like that. I mean, he obviously, even if he went in with an agenda to try to prove something, he wasn't able to do it. So he came out and said, I can't find it. So,
but why would you think he would put that in? He doesn't exonerate him. Why would you?
No, he shouldn't have. He shouldn't have written that. That's obviously completely improper.
Right. Okay. No, and I agree with you on that. So tell me, what would be a reason for him to put it in there?
I don't know. It's also just not DOJ policy as a typical rule, because of course the DOJ, if they don't bring a case, it's long been DOJ policy to not talk about it. They'll even go out of their way, and you've seen it, like when they were talking about Trump as a non-indicted person, they'll call him like person one, even though it could clearly be no one else. They don't use people's names if they don't indict them, because there's no effective means to rebut them because there's no court proceedings.
Right.
So the DOJ, I don't know if the DOJ has ever investigated me. I don't know. And normally that's how that goes. You would have no idea, because if they can't prove whatever they're trying to prove, then then the whole thing is secret and there's no publicity about it. That's how it's typically supposed to work.
Right.
So they wouldn't publish a report and then say, oh yeah, by the way, we think that the guy's super dirty. That's not how the DOJ rolls.
Yeah. And that's what it seems like he's doing. That's what's implied when you say we can't exonerate him.
Very much so.
Yeah, it's implying like there's a stench here, but can't say what that stench is. I mean, he talks about obstruction and that sort of thing there, but I mean,
so it's even worse than normal. It's even worse than the normal reality, because normally something might be like, we're investigating this guy for XYZ, but this, like, we can't exonerate this guy for XYZ. So it's even like a step worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the statement was not proper. So yeah, again, I'm not trying to say that Robert Mueller, and by the way, it's Mueller. I'm Mueller. He's Mueller. So let's get that straight.
He's Mueller?
He's Mueller. Robert Mueller. Yeah, I'm not saying that Robert Mueller was a great guy or he did everything right, but I still found the comments to be over the top.
All right. So you think it would be better if you really despise someone to give faint praise for his life, like, or something like that?
I don't think you necessarily had to say anything about it.
Let's say he's dead.
Why does Trump necessarily have to say anything about it one way or another? Why does Trump have to make an official announcement one way or the other? If he doesn't care, people die all the time. People who work for the government die all the time. Trump doesn't make comments about all of them. So,
right.
Just let his passing go by without notice.
Okay. I can understand that. You knew he wouldn't, though. I mean, if I had told you next week Robert Mueller's going to die, do you think Trump's going to weigh in? You would have been shocked if he
100%. Of course he's going to win.
Yeah.
I wasn't shocked by it. I just found it to be in bad taste. I am pro-Trump, but I'm not sycophantically Trump.
I understand.
So, I agree with Trump on a lot of things, and when he does things I don't like, I criticize him. So.
That's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. Let's get a little bit more from these preceding clips of Robert Mueller. It's not Mueller.
Mueller.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Does he spell it differently than you?
He does. He spelled it the same way as me. He spelled it the same, but he pronounces it differently.
You sure he's not relative?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
It's one of the most common German surnames.
Is it?
Yeah.
Mueller.
Mr. Mueller, does the Attorney General have the power or authority to exonerate? Now, what I'm putting up here is the United States Code. This is where the Attorney General gets his power, and the Constitution and the annotated cases of these, which we've searched. We even went to your law school, because I went to Case Western, but I thought maybe your law school teaches it differently. And we got the criminal law textbook.
I thought maybe your law school teaches it differently. That's
nice. That's very cute.
That's funny.
From your law school, Mr. Mueller, nowhere in these, because we had them scanned, is there a process or description on exonerate? There's no office of exoneration at the Attorney General's office. There's no certificate at the bottom of his desk. Mr. Mueller, would you agree with me that the Attorney General does not have the power to exonerate?
I'm going to pass on that.
No, are you? Really? Even though it goes directly to a principal legal question of a statement you wrote when we said we can't exonerate him, and your power comes from the Attorney General. So if the Attorney General doesn't have it, then you don't have it, because you are his agent.
This is why it's slimy. This is why he's slimy. His whole report here was very slimy. I'm going to pass on that.
So that seems like a pretty important question from basic agency principles.
Yeah.
Like, if the principal doesn't have the power, then surely I don't. So you should know that.
Right.
But yeah.
I can't get into the evidentiary.
Yes, you can, because you wrote about it. You gave us the answer. Page 192 of the report, you tell us who told him. Joseph Mifsud. Joseph Mifsud's the guy who told Papadopoulos, the mysterious professor who lives in Rome and London, teaches in 2 different universities. This is the guy who told Papadopoulos. He's the guy who starts it all. And when the FBI interviews him, he lies 3 times. And yet you don't charge him with a crime. You charge Rick Gates for false statements. You charge Paul Manafort for false statements. You charge Michael Cohen with false statements. You charge Michael Flynn, a 3-star general, with false statements. But the guy who puts the country through this whole saga, starts it all for 3 years we've lived this now, he lies, and you guys don't charge him. And I'm curious as to why.
Well, we can't get into it. And
interview, Mr. Mifsud lied. You point this out on page
Convenient.
193.
Were you able to exonerate him?
It's unbelievable, and that's what this entire thing was designed to cover up. How this
and that question also is a little
get-go.
rich, because that normally would be true, right? Normally the DOJ doesn't get into charging decisions because of all the principles I just said, but this is a very weird situation, because it's like, let me publish this very long document explaining in some excruciating detail why I didn't charge this guy. And then, it would be completely unbecoming for me to comment about other people that I investigate as part of that. It doesn't quite gel as those 2 things being true at the same time.
Right. Right.
Volume 1, Mifsud denied. Mifsud also falsely stated. In addition, Mifsud omitted. 3 times he lied to the FBI, yet you didn't charge him with the crime.
excuse me, did you say one? I'm sorry, did you say 193?
Volume 1, 193. He lied 3 times. You pointed out in the report. Why didn't you charge him with the crime?
I don't know.
Get into internal deliberations with regard who would not be.
You never even considered it. You never even considered it. That's what it is. Because he was telling me what you wanted to hear. That's why.
Charge a lot of other people for making false statements. Let's remember this. In 2016, the FBI did something they probably haven't done before. They spied on 2 American citizens associated with a presidential campaign.
Washington Post yesterday, when speaking of your report, the article said Trump could not be exonerated of trying to obstruct the investigation itself. Trump could not be exonerated. Now, that statement is correct, Mr. Mueller, isn't it? In that no one can be exonerated. The reporter wrote this. This reporter can't be exonerated. Mr. Mueller, you can't be exonerated. In fact, in our criminal justice system, there is no power or authority to exonerate. Now, this is my concern, Mr. Mueller. This is the headline on all of the news channels while you were testifying today. Mueller, Trump was not exonerated. Now, Mr. Mueller, what you know is that this can't say Mueller exonerated Trump, because you don't have the power or authority to exonerate Trump. You have no more power to declare him exonerated than you have the power to declare him Anderson Cooper. So the problem that I have here is that since there's no one in the criminal justice system that has that power, the president pardons, he doesn't exonerate. Courts and juries don't declare innocent, they declare not guilty. They don't even declare exoneration. The statement about exoneration is misleading. And
Your report fails to reveal.
So this is why he got a lot of flack for
misleading. Is a little bit light of a characterization. It's more than just misleading.
What would you characterize it as?
I would characterize it as just basically poisoning. It's designed to poison and to create it could do exactly what it did, is to have the banner headlines that say he's not exonerated, so everyone can have the implication of the thing.
So you don't think that's an evil thing to do?
I didn't say it wasn't evil. I just thought that his Trump statements were a little aggressive. Those aren't quite the same thing.
Okay. All right. Well, that was him. Let me see what else I have for you.
I don't think he was necessarily being evil when he wrote it. He was just trying to be too cute by half.
Okay. Right. Let's get one more clip from this.
Does Kurt have a mirror? Yes. Kurt is aware that his face is red today. Thank you for pointing it out, everyone. Chat, that's helpful.
Okay. So I am in his mirror. It's pretty much like
I'm looking right at myself.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. I got one more clip here from this. I'm not sure if this was covered earlier.
Is that fair?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right. Now, in explaining that special counsel did not make what you called a traditional prosecution or declination decision, the report on the bottom of page 2 of volume 2 reads as follows. The evidence we obtained about the president's actions and intent presents difficult issues that prevent us from conclusively determining that no criminal conduct occurred. Accordingly, while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. Now, I read that correctly?
Yes.
All right.
So
now,
he wrote
your
that twice.
Report, and today you said at all times the special counsel team operated under, was guided by.
He put it in the beginning and the end of volume 2. Like, can't exonerate him. Can't exonerate him. Like, it's like he wanted to make sure that the public saw that.
I'm sure.
Follow Justice Department policies and principles. So, which DOJ policy or principle sets forth a legal standard that an investigated person is not exonerated if their innocence from criminal conduct is not conclusively determined?
Can you repeat the last part of that question?
Yeah.
Where'd you get that bullshit from?
Set forth a legal standard that an investigated person is not exonerated if their innocence from criminal conduct is not conclusively determined. Where does that language come from, Director? Where is the DOJ policy that says that? Let me make it easier.
Go ahead.
Can you give me an example other than Donald Trump where the Justice Department determined that an investigated person was not exonerated because their innocence was not conclusively determined?
I cannot, but this is a unique situation.
Well, you can't. Time is short. I've got 5 minutes. Let's just leave it at you can't find it, because I'll tell you why. It doesn't exist. The special counsel's job, nowhere does it say that you were to conclusively determine Donald Trump's innocence or that the special counsel report should determine whether or not to exonerate him. It's not in any of the documents. It's not in your appointment order. It's not in the special counsel regulations. It's not in the OLC opinions. It's not in the Justice Manual, and it's not in the principles of federal prosecution. Nowhere do those words appear together, because respectfully, Director, it was not the special counsel's job to conclusively determine Donald Trump's innocence or to exonerate him, because the bedrock principle of our justice system is a presumption of innocence. It exists for everyone. Everyone is entitled to it, including sitting presidents.
So that's John Radcliffe. You can see why Trump's a fan, right? But yeah, so I don't want to spend all of my time talking about the Mueller report, the Mueller report, because I think that most of you are probably already familiar with that. What I really wanted to spend the bulk of my time doing was covering things that probably most of you don't know much about with respect to his history coming into his creation of that report, which is a lot of shady things that he's associated with.
I just noticed your sweater, by the way. I noticed the merch.
It's not even part of my merch. This was like a one thing. Like, this is the only one I've got.
It should be some merch. It looks good.
Thank you. I should merch. Should I merch this? Let's have that as a question.
You say good evening, everyone, every single stream. So yeah, you should have some good evening merch.
Yeah, Probably should. That's probably a good idea, but I'll poll that. We'll poll. We'll ask the people if that would be.
With the members of your not cult, like a not cult uniform, yeah, I think they're going to vote in favor of that.
Start a poll.
We can get some sneakers and some track pants. It'll be great.
There's no such thing. It's not at all the sort of thing we would ever possibly consider happening here, at all. But I guess if I wear it, then that makes it more merchandisable.
Yeah.
All right, we'll make it simple. Yes or no, is that? All right. So let's get into his history of being part of cover-ups. And this is why I say that he was anti-MAGA even before there was such a thing as MAGA. To the extent that people look at MAGA as transparency in our government, which I understand that.
Oh yeah, he's hardcore institutionalist. There's no doubt of that.
He is Mr. Institutionalist.
Oh yeah, big time.
He's like the fixer for institutionalism. And he didn't mind who he would trample on the way towards creating those fixes, which is why I think he was a terrible human being. Mueller was beginning dementia by this hearing. He was a figurehead hiring goons like Wiseman and Jeannie Reed to destroy Trump, Reed Svetlana and Lakova's ex and her husband about Mueller destroying her life. I'm unfamiliar with that particular.
I don't want to name names, but I knew a woman who was involved in the Mueller investigation. One of the many attorneys who was involved, and although she wouldn't, obviously say details because she was good about it, it was very clear that she was very anti-Trump when she was talking. So they did have a bunch of Trump hating, Trump spitting people investigating him for sure.
All right. Well, it's not surprising. I mean, it's kind of like, and if you're an institutionalist, because people look at him as like, well, Robert Mueller, he was, he worked for Bush. It's like, no, Bush and Trump are not on the same side. They're not at all on the same side. But let's get into some of the let's get into some of his history and the different things he was involved in. So I found this article by Kevin Ryan, which is actually like 8 years old. So it wasn't created for this. This is something which is breaking down his history of being involved with really questionable stuff. Former FBI Director Robert Mueller has been in the news lately due to his inquiry into Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. elections after a 12-year stint leading the Bureau, the longest ever since J. Edgar Hoover. Mueller is now seen by many as an honest man serving the interests of the American public. However, that perception cannot be defended once one knows about his past. What some people don't know about Mueller is that he has a long history of leading government investigations that were diversions or cover-ups. These include the investigation into the 1988 bombing of the Pan Am Flight 103. Do you remember that story?
Not particularly, no.
Right. You also have the investigation into terrorist financing, Bank of Credit and Commerce International, and the FBI investigations into September 11th. So and he's going to go into all three of these in great detail. Because I think a lot of you, I didn't remember. It's like I had a vague recollection that if you say, Pan Am Flight 103, I had a vague recollection that there was something with that, but I'd forgotten, even though it was 18 when this happened. But the FBI's investigating the crimes of September 11th. Today, the public is beginning to realize that Mueller's investigation into Russian collusion with the Trump campaign is a similar diversion. Mueller's talents were noticed early in his career at the Justice Department. As a U.S. attorney in Boston during the mid-'80s, he helped falsely convict 4 men for murders they didn't commit in order to protect a powerful FBI informant. Who was that informant? He was a mobster, James Whitey Bulger. So in order to help clear the way for Bulger, he actually convicted 4 people. According to the Boston Globe, Mueller was also in a position while Whitey Bulger was helping the FBI cart off his criminal competitors as he buried bodies in shallow graves along the Neponset. Mueller was then appointed as a chief investigator of the 1988 bombing to Pan Am 103 in Scotland. So the account Mueller produced was a flimsy story that accused a Libyan named McGrahy of coordinating placement of a suitcase bomb that allegedly traveled unaccompanied through several airports. So from one airport to another, with no one, without having anyone there, to find its way to the doomed flight. Despite Mueller's persistent defense of this unbelievable tale, McGrahi was released from prison in 2009 and died 3 years later in Libya. So he basically went after this guy McGrahi, saying he sent this bomb on a plane, got him convicted, and it does seem kind of difficult to believe that a guy is able to like send a bomb that's going to go through multiple airports undetected. With the Pan Am 103 case, Mueller was covering up facts related to some of the victims of the bombing. No idea about anything about this. A group of U.S. intelligence specialists, led by Major Charles McKee, who died on Flight 103 of the Defense Intelligence Agency. McKee had gone to Beirut to find and rescue hostages, and while there, learned about CIA involvement in a drug smuggling operation run through an agency project called Korea.
Yeah, you're gonna have to be more specific. Which drug smuggling operation? Yeah. Which one involving which countries?
So just to understand what the point is here, according to this perspective. I don't know if this is true. I'm just sharing with you this perspective. You got this Major Charles McKee who he goes out to Libya in order to try and free some hostages. And to Lebanon, to Beirut, Lebanon. So he goes to Beirut, Lebanon, that makes more sense, to try and get hostages freed. While he's there, he learns about a drug smuggling operation which is being run by the CIA. This is exactly the sort of thing that Jeffrey Epstein, if you ask Mike Benz, exactly the sort of thing that Jeffrey Epstein was financially involved with, like helping to coordinate. Where you have these monies moving, that CIA moving monies through different proxies that they're interested in funneling money to, under the guise of it being some other type of operation, because they feel like these are forces that are beneficial to America's agenda. So without any sort of government sanctioning, that the CIA would just get involved in all sorts of illicit type of activities, and they would have these operations which were designed to help get money to party X that they find to be favorable or they want to pay off or something. So McKee basically stumbled on that when he's in Lebanon, and he's bringing evidence back of that with him on Flight 103 when there's a bombing. None of this gets exposed by Mueller. As Time magazine reported, the likely explanation for the bombing, supported by independent intelligence experts, was that U.S. operatives targeted Flight 103. It's not just like randomly trying to kill, blow up a plane. It was a specific targeted killing of McKee.
Oh no, that feels like a lot, even for the CIA. You think they destroyed a commercial airliner to take out 4 guys, and with all that collateral damage? I don't know. Maybe I have higher hopes than that. Maybe I'm naive. Feels like a lot.
Well, it sounds more conceivable to me than a plane, than a suitcase going unattended through different airports. That sounds to me kind of crazy. So one way or another, this plane blew up. So this would prevent disclosure what McKee's team had learned. That theory is also supported by the fact that the CIA showed up almost immediately after the scene of the crash, and they took McKee's briefcase and returned it empty.
The briefcase wasn't destroyed in the explosion?
It's not.
Okay. And the fire?
Explosion was meant to, I'm sure, look, there's some wreckage, but they probably found his briefcase and
okay.
Mueller's diversions led to his leadership of the criminal division at the U.S. Department of Justice, putting him in charge of investigations regarding the BCCI. So now we're on to this. So that was the first story, was with respect to, I guess the first one was technically this Whitey Bulger situation. The second situation is with this the Pan Am case, where it seems like he's helping the CIA, that it helps them cover up what happened by basically...
That's also, yeah, I think the idea that I like that Whitey Bulger thing, because I think that Epstein was probably an asset of the FBI, is my working theory.
Right. Well, they don't call them assets or
they
agents.
Call them confidential informants. They call them something else.
Yeah, they call them like useful.
Yeah. We'll give them another name. That's fine. But the FBI is an intelligence agency, so I'm going to call them an asset.
All right, fair enough. Mueller's diversions led to this leadership of the criminal division at the U.S. Department of Justice, putting him in charge of investigations regarding BCCI. When Mueller started in that role, members of Congress and the media were already critical of the government's approach to the BCCI affair. So it had been ongoing. He picked up the ball. Mueller came into the picture telling the Washington Post that there was an appearance of one foot dragging two, perhaps a cover-up. Later, he denied the cover-up claim and the suggestion that the CIA may have collaborated with BCCI operatives. Again, when you're working with a crooked bank, you can imagine it's not surprising to hear the CIA working with a crooked bank. That's almost how they get. That's kind of how they get away with being so crooked, is that they basically have government help in being crooked. But again, Mueller was simply brought in to accomplish the cover-up. The facts were that BCCI was used by the CIA to operate outside the rule of law through funding of terrorists and other criminal operatives. The bank network was at the root of some of the greatest crimes against the public in the last 50 years, including the savings and loan scandal, the Iran-Contra affair, and the creation of the Al-Qaeda terrorist network.
But why would the CIA use the BCCI rather than just do it themselves? Because that would require them to play nice with the other children, which doesn't seem like the CIA's operative MO either.
Oh, I think there's a lot of explanations that you would have for that. It makes a lot of sense that banks would loan money to different people and, you know, forgive those loans and things of that nature. That's on their books. That'd be a natural thing. I mean, when they say as far as the bank network is really some greatest crimes against the public, I'll click the link here, see what they give me on that. A partial list of the economic and political scandals that investigated through the 1980s and early 90s. Savings and loan scandal, stock market manipulation, money laundering, Iran-Contra affair, October surprise in Iran hostage crisis, Iraq Gate, BNL, and the rise of the fund. These are all,
okay.
You know, so illegal weapons held to Iran and Saudi Arabia.
Maybe it was just a convenient vessel. Fair enough.
Yeah, it sounds like they probably are. They probably are a convenient vessel.
Okay, fair enough.
Mueller was instrumental in obstructing the BCCI investigation led by Manhattan District Attorney Robert Morgenthau. During this time, Justice Department prosecutors were instructed not to cooperate with Morgenthau. Describing Mueller's obstruction of Morgenthau, the Wall Street Journal reported that documents were withheld and attempts were made to block other federal agencies from cooperating. Describing Mueller's role in the BCCI cover-up more clearly, reporter Chris Floyd wrote, when a few prosecutors finally began targeting BCCI's operations in the late 80s, President George Herbert Walker Bush boldly moved in with federal probe directed by the Justice Department investigator Robert Mueller. So he's brought in here basically to help cover up for what's happening here. The U.S. Senate later found that the probe had been unaccountably botched. Witnesses went missing. CIA records got lost. Lower-ranking prosecutors told of heavy pressure from on high to lay off. Most of the big BCCI players went unpunished or, like Khalid bin Mahfouz, got off with a wrist slap fines and sanctions. Mueller, of course, wound up as head of the FBI, appointed to the post in July 2001 by Bush.
So Bush well, no, George W. Bush.
George W. Bush, yeah.
No, it sounds like sounds like Bush Sr. was doing his prior job.
Yeah.
Before he was president.
And it sounds like he's getting rewarded for that. So it's interesting that he's the head of the FBI in July 2001, right before 9/11, right? So I'm not saying that that's purposefully to set up to enable 9/11, but I'm not saying I wasn't even thinking that. I know it came out of my mouth that way. It's sounding like I was making that insinuation. My point is that he is the one at the helm when 9/11 happens. And yes, in the summer of 2001, when the new Bush administration suspected it would soon need a cover-up, Mueller was brought in for the job. I guess they are making that claim, but I think that's a bit of a stretch. Although suspect Louis Freeh was FBI director in the lead up to the crimes, Mueller knew enough to keep things under wraps. He also had some interesting ties to 9/11 suspects like Rudy Giuliani, whose career paralleled Mueller's closely during the Reagan and first Bush administrations. Under Mueller, the FBI began the whitewash of 9/11 immediately. Mueller himself lied repeatedly in the direct aftermath with respect to FBI knowledge of the accused hijackers. He claimed that the alleged hijackers left no paper trail, and suggested that they exercised extraordinary secrecy and discipline never broke down. In fact, ringleader Muhammad Atta went to great lengths to draw attention to himself prior to the attacks. Let's see what we're talking about with that. Okay. They have a whole article here about that he was involved in a lot of notable events in a short period before 9/11. He annoyed airport employees, was bitten by a dog, consumed alcohol and cocaine, lived with an exotic dancer, and killed a cat and her litter of kittens. Pulled over for driving without a license, drunk and swore at a waiter, and abandoned a plane on the runway. Some of these cases, Atta interacted with police and the risk for police. So to say there's no trail of him, it sounds kind of crazy when this guy has such a litany of involvement with police. Meanwhile, moreover, the evidence the accused men supposedly left behind was obvious and implausibly convenient for the FBI. Meanwhile, Mueller's FBI immediately seized control investigations at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where United Flight 93 was destroyed. Under Mueller, leaders of the Bureau went on to arrest and intimidate witnesses, destroy or withhold evidence, and prevent any independent investigation. With Mueller in the lead, the FBI failed to cooperate with the government investigations into 9/11 and failed miserably to perform basic investigatory tasks. Instead, Mueller celebrated some of the most egregious pre-9/11 failures of the FBI by giving those involved promotions, awards, and cash bonuses. As FBI whistleblower Colleen Riley later wrote with regard to 9/11, Robert Mueller and James Comey, as Deputy Attorney General, presided over a cover-up. Kristen Breitweiser, one of the 4 9/11 widows known as the Jersey Girl, stated something similar. Mueller and other FBI officials had purposely tried to keep any incriminating information specifically surrounding the Saudis out of the inquiry's investigative hands. So they specifically seemed protective of the Crown Prince. To repeat, there was a concerted effort by the FBI and the Bush administration to keep incriminating Saudi evidence out of the inquiry's investigation. So you're seeing here one time after another, he's making a career out of like just trying to obfuscate. That's what he does. That's what he spent his career doing. Supporting Breitweiser's claims, public watchdog agency Judicial Watch emphasized Mueller's role in the cover-up. Quote, though the recently filed court documents reveal Mueller received a briefing about the Sarasota Saudi investigation, the FBI continued to publicly deny it existed, and it appears that the lies were approved by Mueller. Mueller's FBI went on to botch the investigation into the October 2001 anthrax attacks. Now, some of you may have forgotten, or if you're too young to appreciate, shortly after 9/11, there was a handful of incidents where people were mailing anthrax and questions as to like, I know it happened at least once or twice. Sometimes there was powder, sometimes there was anthrax, but that
and then it stopped
and then it just magically it just stopped overnight. As expected, the result was a long series of inexplicable diversions that led nowhere.
My faith in the FBI is pretty low at the moment because of the Guthrie kidnapping. It's like, how have they not figured this out? It's like how
is she still missing?
Yeah, they still haven't figured that out. They still don't know what happened, who's involved. It's like the FBI's they don't know anything.
She's
like,
got.
How can you not know anything?
It is strange.
These guys were able to pull all this off magically.
It is kind of.
These guys are just really, really good. I mean, were they really sophisticated state actors or something?
There's no way
we're killing Guthrie.
There's no way that woman is still alive.
Was it intelligence of some foreign government? Because otherwise, I don't know how they pulled it off, or the FBI is just massively incompetent.
It is kind of crazy. There's such a high-profile disappearance like that. She's like the opposite of the Lindbergh baby. It's Nana Guthrie. Well, anyhow, as expected, the result was a long series of inexplicable diversions that led nowhere. The anthrax attacks occurred at a time when Mueller himself was warning Americans that another 9/11 could occur at any time, despite his lack of interest in the first one. They also provide the emotional impetus for Americans in Congress to accept the Patriot Act, which had been written prior to 9/11.
That's the USA Patriot Act, if you don't mind.
Yes. Exactly why Mueller's expertise was needed is not yet known, but examining the evidence suggests that the anthrax attackers were the same people who planned 9/11.
I just always
that.
like mentioning that because its official title is the USA Patriot Act, because it's the Uniting and Strengthening America by Protecting blah 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 something act. Of course, every letter stands for something.
Right.
So they're really pretentious about it. So it's the USA Patriot Act. Can't forget that Uniting and Strengthening America part.
Yeah. I'll tell you that I don't know that the anthrax attacks are related to 9/11. See, I sort of feel like sometimes perhaps a climate that happens might end up creating an opportunity for people to feel like this is a good time to play into American fear, which there was a great deal of fear in the fall of 2001. So it's a good time to help terror. If you're looking to terrorize people, that was the most opportune time to engage in it. So I don't know that I've ever heard of anyone, providing evidence. I don't think we ever got behind the anthrax. We have any claim that we know who ever did those anthrax attacks. So to just say that they're related rather than saying that there's a causal relation, or that there's, rather than it being like, someone taking advantage of an opportunity created by 9/11, is rather than being a causal link or a common actors. That's my point. With knowledge of Mueller's past, people can see that he's not in the news today to reveal important information about Russia and the Trump administration. This is before he actually came out with his reports. This article. To the contrary, Mueller's in the news divert attention away from important information and most likely to prevent the Trump administration from being scrutinized in any real way. This is someone who thinks that it's designed to help cover up for Trump, not realizing how this report would ultimately end up. But you see how it's all about messaging with this guy. That's basically what his whole career was. It's just how do we do messaging? And
yeah, I mean, he's just another institutionalist, though. I mean, he isn't a particular evil. He's part of the broader problem that MAGA's trying to deal with to some degree. It's just an institutional actor, and he got through being an institutional actor and by doing what the institution wanted to do, which is why he was able to get through every stage of his career. He played that game well, and Trump, being an incredibly disruptive influence, as for any number of levels, he wanted to get him because he was disruptive. So he was motivated because he was a chaotic factor.
Chaotic factor in that he's like not okay with the CIA going rogue and funding drug cartels.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing that the CIA funded drug cartels.
You make it sound as if Trump, like there's a negative in Trump, and I think his destabilization of our institution is a healthy thing. That's the whole point about having transparency.
I didn't mean chaotic negatively. I just meant it as descriptive.
Right. Okay. All right.
He's not playing by normal rules. He's throwing things into a state of, he's disruptive. Would you prefer disruptive over chaotic? I didn't mean it negatively.
That's all right. I mean, I didn't take offense. I was just pointing out that, I agree that he would be viewed by institutionalists as being disruptive. I think this is why we see our institutionalists on the Supreme Court so often seem to beggar belief in how they will just in some of their opinions.
Yeah, no joke. Yeah, especially. Yeah. I have my thoughts on the Supreme Court for sure, and what they will or will not do, and some of their.
Are you disappointed with Amy Coney Barrett?
I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion about Barrett. I've had a tough time getting a real firm opinion about her, to be honest.
All right. Okay.
I'm still she's still a question mark for me.
Kavanaugh?
I don't like Kavanaugh because he's an institutionalist. He likes governmental power, and he'll side with the governmental power. So I'm not.
You think he's more of an institutionalist than ACB?
Yes.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I haven't noticed that.
Kavanaugh's opinions favor the government's ability to do things. He favors governmental power and governmental interests. His decisions usually are in favor of Yeah, that's my perception.
You mean like the COVID mortgage freeze when he was like, well, this is totally unconstitutional, but it's just another few weeks.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. So if it's the executive branch wants to do a thing, if it's giving power to them to do a thing, that's Kavanaugh vote. So I consider him an institutionalist for that reason. He likes the government having power.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on Gorsuch?
Gorsuch is my favorite. He's my boy. He's my man.
He's pretty good. He's
every
once in a while he'll say things I'll just be like, really? But yeah, he's not an Alito or a Thomas, but he's pretty solid.
Gorsuch is number one for me. I love him.
All right.
And Thomas and Alito are both getting up there, and the rumor mills have of course been turning as they do that one or both of them may be hanging up their hat this term. They're both getting pretty old, so it wouldn't surprise me.
It's a little bit scary because I don't know that I trust Trump to find a solid replacement for them.
Yeah, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to trust them after the midterm elections? Is our posture better in the Senate now or then? So do we do it? Do we try to do it now, or do we wait until the midterms and whatever happens in the Senate?
I don't know. I think that I'd be surprised if they step down to be replaced by someone. How much do you think that plays into a Supreme Court justice's mindset about retiring?
I think it plays a lot into the mindset of people because they want to be replaced by people who won't completely destroy their legacy.
Right.
Unless they're like Ginsburg and they just cannot let go.
She could not let go.
She couldn't let go. What a mistake. What a mistake.
Her steely, bony hands, like holding on to her chair.
I guess I should be grateful that she was unable to let go. Gave us a great opportunity.
Yeah, this is true. Although then we got Amy Coney Barrett. So
I don't think she's too bad. What's your biggest grief with ACB?
I don't know. I find that there's a whole series of decisions which are just dissents from the four women. And there's so much illogic that goes into I sort of like Supreme Court decisions. Like I'm not the savant that you are with respect to Supreme Court decisions. I just know that like continually I'll be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like this is just like this is what an institutionalist would say. I'm trying to think off.
You think you don't find her decisions to be academically rigorous enough?
No. I think that we were totally sold a bill of goods on that simply because she's smart, which I don't dispute the fact that she's far more intelligent than the other three women. But
Kagan's pretty smart. I mean, you may
okay.
not like she may not like her, but she's very, very intelligent.
She's okay. But I think Amy Coney Barrett's smarter, but I have no confidence in. I'm just trying to think through the most recent dissent from Amy Coney Barrett that I disliked. I don't know.
I'll tell you what. Since the appointment of Jackson, I feel pretty comfortable about cosplaying as a member of SCOTUS, even more than I did before. It's like I can't fuck it up that bad.
Oh my God, she is just a walking.
How bad can it possibly be?
She's a walking.
Justice and Civil's looking pretty good right about now. You know what I mean?
When you thought you couldn't get dumber than Sotomayor, they're like, Jackson's like, hold my beer. Yeah. No,
I promise every question will not begin with what I don't understand is.
Yeah. I don't understand. Yeah. But now I'm feeling under the gun. Give me some Barrett decisions that you think I might have an issue with.
That's the thing. Like Barrett just doesn't. I don't really. I get a lot from her decisions either way. I don't find them particularly. I just find them kind of eh. It doesn't do much for me anyway. She's kind of eh.
Yeah, I'm trying.
I'm hard pressed to think of a Barrett decision off the top of my head.
Yeah,
it just doesn't do a lot for me either way.
I think that's she. I'm just trying to think of decisions I disliked in the last like 3 years that like would really tick me off. And I know invariably Amy Coney Barrett is on the side it was in the majority. I'm trying to think of the last one.
I mean,
There was like
I'm trying to think like if she's ever really authored a decision that's like really controversial for the right. She just doesn't seem to do that. When she writes decisions, they're sort of also around decisions. She doesn't seem to write big decisions that would be disappointing.
Yeah. I want to just, before I close out on the Robert Mueller story, I didn't share this. This is what George W. Bush wrote about the passing. And Trump had to say something. Every president's weighing in on it. Statement by President George W. Bush and Robert Mueller. Laura and I are deeply saddened by the loss of Robert Mueller. Bob dedicated his life to public service. As a Marine in Vietnam, he proved he was ready for tough assignments. He earned the Bronze Star and a Purple Heart before returning home to pursue law. 2001, only 1 week into the job as the sixth director at FBI, Bob transitioned the agency mission to protecting the homeland after September 11th. He led the agency effectively, helping prevent another terrorist attack on U.S. soil. Laura and I send our heartfelt sympathy to his wife of nearly 60 years, Anne, and the Mueller family.
He was appointed September 2001?
That's what I said. He came in right before 9/11.
Wow, okay.
He got in there right before 9/11.
All right.
So, yeah, but you see that he was basically doing the Bush's bidding. This is all the same thing as far as institutionalists. Basically, George W. Bush is the career institutionalist. This is all about government power. The mightier government power is, the better off America is, and that's what Amy Coney Barrett is all about. I mean, she's your classic institutionalist, and I think that yeah. But what I thought was interesting is, I was writing on Friday about Joe Kent, and when the Joe Kent story broke, so a bunch of folks in my audience here were like basically telling me, "Don't you dare trash this guy. He's he's served 11 tours and a Bronze Star or a Silver Star, I don't remember, but that he's a real hero." And I think that this is something that, that's phenomenal. And the country's expressing gratitude to him is insufficient way of rewarding him for his very noble efforts at helping protect our liberties. That doesn't mean, but then they walk off the battlefield and then they still live a life. And what they do once they walk off the battlefield, sometimes it helps cement a real legacy, and sometimes it ends up being something that's tragic and terrible or destructive to the country. You can't tell me that John Kerry walked off the battlefield and it's like, oh, okay, he's not a destructive force. And frankly, I'd say the same thing about Colonel Vindman, the way he handled things, or countless people. Look at the seditious six. I think what Mark Kelly did was terrible. I think that was purposefully demoralizing our military. So, to say that I don't know that Joe Kent is evil. I don't know. I know that there's all this talk about him, which doesn't make him look good. And there's a lot of insinuation that he's been leaking things specifically to Tucker and having a relationship with Candace Owens. And because he's got such strong anti-war perspective. So, and that definitely seems to have some hang up with, one country in particular. So I just don't, does that mean that because of his history on the battlefield, like I can't criticize what he's doing today? That doesn't seem to make any sense. I can criticize Robert Mueller. I can criticize Joe Kent and say what you're doing here is terrible. It's destructive.
Yeah, I would never say you can't criticize him. And I just thought, the way Trump put out the criticism was, but then again, he was directly involved. So maybe he was just venting his frustration because
he was directly affected.
I mean, so that's the thing too. So that's fair.
His legacy from the perspective of Trump is basically leaving a cloud over him, as if, and unfairly leaving that cloud over him.
That's very true.
So yeah, you would be like, you know what? F you. I'm glad you're dead. Like, you suck.
You're not wrong. Now that you put it that way, I probably would do that too. So yeah.
So
but I think I'm going to take my leave so I can get some sleep. It's a little late for me.
I thank you for joining, my brother. Have a good night.
All right, have a good night.
All right, take care. So yeah, no, I don't think there's anything wrong at all with what Trump said or did with respect to Robert Mueller. This is what he, frankly, Robert Mueller deserved his scorn, and I got uncivil to come around to recognizing that. So there you go. There you go. That was it. I did have other things to cover in the news, and I sort of put that up there as my goal. I didn't mention the goal. I usually mention the goal, and I didn't mention it at the opening of tonight's show. But the goal was, which we're not. I don't think we're going to reach the goal, and frankly, I didn't think we were going to reach the goal because when I have a start a show so late, I can't fault you for like not hitting the goal. I know that my regular crew isn't around. I should peek over in the ghetto because I'm sure there's some stuff going on there. Brazilians say, Joe, come on, man, you've flown before. They have tons of track nowadays. And they still put people's luggage on wrong flights and send the Paris flight when you're going to LAX. Yeah, not multiple airports. I have to wonder, uncivil, why do we have to pretend when someone dies they're this amazing person? We do the same thing with murderers. I'm sorry I missed that question, Brazilian. I'm not a fan of that. I think that, I mean, when it comes to talking about the dead in Jewish tradition, we're actually very careful not to try and avoid overstating claims about the dead, positive claims about the dead. Because we look at it as they're basically about to be judged on like eternal truth. And if you overstate something about them, it's almost like you're embarrassing them that they led the public to believe something about them that's not true. And they're literally standing in front of a judge who's judging them. And it's like, it doesn't play well for them. So, yeah. Anyway, I was thinking about going through a little bit more into the Mueller situation. This is a different article from Intel Today about different things that he was associated with, from the Bulger gang to anthrax. And when I went through this, I was left more confused than they referenced the Lockery case, which there's almost like an assumption that you're going to know certain things when they're basically writing out, in respect to the Lockery case, a country, a whole people, a justice system, and the truth were sacrificed in order for the status quo between Edinburgh and London. Indeed, Washington was preserved and maintained, not the status quo around the symbolic political union between the two nations. It's like, I don't even know what the hell they're talking about here. I assume this is talking about the Pan Am Flight 103, which was down by Scotland. But yeah, I really did sort of want to try to get a little bit more into understanding Robert Mueller, because I feel as if he is someone who's reviled, and he definitely earned our scorn with respect to Trump. But I knew that there was probably more to the story with respect to the evil there, and I hope I provide some context so you can appreciate how his entire career was dedicated towards being a cover-up for the government and everything that we hate about the government. Like, without the Robert Muellers of the world, the CIA would have been exposed a long time ago. He enables them. He's an enabler for them to perpetuate their shady operations. And it's not just that he enables them to do it. It's that innocent people end up coming in. You have to blame someone. So he ends up blaming innocent people rather than actually getting to the truth of the matter. So these are people whose lives he destroyed. I mean, just outright destroyed. It was a whole thing about Hatfield and Irvin, who he ended up. This is what I wanted to get to. On Robert Mueller, the FBI framed 4 men for murder in the 1960s. This is before he was there. When the cover-up was discovered, Director Mueller was asked for the FBI position on their convictions. Mueller's FBI lied about the evidence, denied the men's innocence, and only conceded that they could have a new trial, even though he knew that they were innocent. This is May 9, 2002. Reference made to a letter addressed to Director Robert Mueller, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Washington, D.C., dated April 4, 2002, a copy of which was sent to this office. FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. has directed this office to respond to your letters on April 4th, which requests the official version of these incidents, which culminated in the petitioner's arrests. This is what his office wrote on his behalf. As you probably know, Mr. Tamalio, Mr. Greco were prosecuted by the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office in connection with the 1965 murder of Edward Deegan. 1967, Greco was indicted for the murder of Edward Deegan. Well, and then it goes on to the whole history. On January 5th, 2001, Suffolk Superior Court Judge Margaret R. Hinkle issued an order following Limone's motion for a new trial. Hinkle's order also allowed the Commonwealth's motion to vacate Limone's convictions and grant a new trial. On about January 30th, the Commonwealth, through Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, filed a nolle prosequi after deciding not to retry the case. Based on conversations with the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, it is the writer's understanding that the FBI documents disclosed on or about December 19, 2000 represent additional fodder for the cross-examination that this newly discovered impeachment material justified a new trial. Because the Commonwealth's key witness, Joseph Barboza Barron, was shot and killed on February 11, 1976, it is impossible for the Commonwealth to retry this case. Barron is dead and can no longer be impeached through cross-examination. This does not necessarily mean, however, that Limone or any of the other defendants is innocent. It merely means that they're entitled to a new trial. So even though the person they relied on was his testimony wasn't impeached, they still say, well, we just need to have a new trial, rather than just recognizing that, hey, this thing is kind of messed up. Because he's a government guy. That's what he does. That's what he does. That's his function. This is another claim about him also, that he withheld exculpatory evidence a lot. So, you know, there's a lot of innocent lives who were destroyed by this guy. Not simply Donald Trump, you know, facing unnecessary scrutiny, but a lot of people who were really, who just had their entire lives destroyed by Robert Mueller. So, yeah, I don't think he's a hero. He's a terrible person. And you can sit there saying, well, help make America strong so that people have trust in our institutions. That's insanity. Instead, how people, it's like people have false trust because we don't know what our institutions are up to, which is horrible. So, but you think having our trust is more important than actually, you know, holding them accountable for their wrongs that they commit. Such a short-sighted perspective. So all you do is allow corruption to flourish. So I'm torn about whether to cover the other stuff. There were a few other things that I had here. I didn't really line them up. I just sort of like put them aside. I put them aside for like stuff to talk about with you guys. I do want to, I think that maybe I have a bunch of things I want to talk to you about with respect to Iran. So maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll talk about Iran. So I want to talk about this. There's talks that we may be winding down and there may be a peace deal coming with respect to Iran. You heard that. Yeah. We may not have heard it, but you heard it now. So hit the like button if you like hearing about peace with Iran. So that sounds good. This is what Trump shared out. Hey, Jim tells you. Hope you feel better, my brother. The stomach bug is going around. Did you talk about Mueller's connections to Whitey Bulger? He protected a murderer. I did. I did. Thank you. Trump says U.S. close to meeting our objectives as we consider winding down our great military efforts in the Middle East. This is phenomenal news. We're a long way from it being wound down, but this is the fact that we're talking about it now is a very good sign. It's a very good sign that we will be out of there and done with this by the time my birthday rolls around at the end of June. We're getting very close to meeting our objectives as we consider winding down our great military efforts in the Middle East with respect to the terrorist regime of Iran. 1, completely degrading Iranian missile capability launches and everything else pertaining to them. 2, destroying Iran's defense industrial base. 3, eliminating their Navy and Air Force, including anti-aircraft weaponry. 4, never allowing Iran to get even close to nuclear capability and even being in a position where the USA can quickly and powerfully react to such situation should it take place. 5, protecting at the highest level our Middle Eastern allies, including Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, and others. The Hormuz Strait will have to be guarded and policed as necessary by other nations who use it. The United States does not. We don't use that. If asked, we will help these countries in their Hormuz efforts, but it shouldn't be necessary once Iran's threat is eradicated. Importantly, it will be an easy military operation for them. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So that sounds like really good news. He starts talking about winding down. That definitely sounds good. Victor David Hansen saying that it seems as if things are going well in Iran. Here he is on that.
There's enough evidence to see how things are really going. Europeans would never agree to go anywhere near Iran unless they thought the tide was turning and they think that we're going to win. Otherwise, they would keep still. And the reason that the petro nations of the Gulf survive is they have their finger in the wind and they're very attuned to the climate. And when you have Al Jazeera praising the United States bombing campaign and saying that it's been underestimated and it's brilliant and effective, you get the feeling that they think not only should the United States finish the job, but it can and will finish the job. And then when you start to see tactical aircraft like Warthogs and Apaches, that means that they're offering almost ground and sea support to hit targets. There's nothing, there's no defense at all when you have that type of aircraft flying at will in Iranian airspace. So you put it all together, and I think it's pretty clear that this rope-a-dope strategy that they have, that we're going to tire before they are, is dependent on just public opinion, the midterms in the United States. And if Trump sees it through, and I think he will, I think they're going to fall pretty soon. And
so the question is, what would that fall look like? Like, what would that look like if we got out of there? OSZ reporting Trump's team game plan for potential Iran peace talks, according to Axios. The U.S. wants 6 commitments from Iran. No missile program for 5 years, 0 uranium enrichment, decommissioning of bombed reactors in Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordow, strict outside observation of centrifuges and related nuclear machinery, regional arms control treaties with a missile cap no higher than 1,000, and no financing for proxies, Hezbollah, Houthis, and Hamas. That's what we're looking for. Which, if they were a normal country, wouldn't be that tough a thing. It's really not that tough a thing. It's like, look, you can have a nice, thriving country. Just Stop with your nukes. Stop supporting terrorism. So you're saying that's a huge wish list? I don't know how you do this. I don't know how you get that. The strict outside observation of centrifuges and related nuclear machinery. I don't know what that means. We've found that in the past that's been like how do you know that they're not going to be screwing around? Like when people are coming in there, it always feels as if like, you know, we can never get a straight answer as to how exhaustive someone researching is, especially, you know, when you feel like if they kick the researchers, you know, a couple $100,000 and basically say, oh, we didn't see anything, that they'll probably go play along with it. So you know, the observers become like key, and I have little confidence in the observations. But Brazilian is saying total destruction of the IRGC is required. You're not going to have destruction of the IRGC other than, like, I guess it's almost like, you know, the same way you can't kill every cockroach. It's like there's just scattering around. They're not coming out there sticking their head out for you to like blow it off. So the question is, who has control of the government ultimately? So I think this is not a crazy. It's interesting that you're saying, Uzelian's saying it's not enough, and KPT says, you know, that's a huge wish list. I think it's a reasonable list. But I'm encouraged by this. I'm encouraged that, you know, here we are. We're 3 weeks into this mission. It feels like we've been there for 6 months, but it's only 3 weeks. We're 3 weeks into this mission, and we're already talking about pulling, you know, how we can get out, which is very important. It's very important that we don't get quagmired in there. We get mired down in Iran, it's going to destroy the second half. We're going to get killed in the elections. That's just reality. That is reality. And part of what helps for the elections is recognition that their missiles have a much greater range. The Iranian missiles have a much greater range than what we initially thought. Mario Naufel reporting out here, Iran just proved its missiles can reach far beyond the Middle East. Iran fired 2 intermediate range ballistic missiles at Diego Garcia, a joint US-UK military base sitting 4,000 kilometers away in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Neither hit the base. It's in the middle of the ocean, so I guess, you know, they came up like, you know, they just missed the target. But it's 4,000 kilometers. The message landed harder than any warhead could. Tehran has always publicly claimed its missile range tops out at 2,000 kilometers. This strike attempt doubles that number overnight. The Khorramshahr 4 that likely carried out the attack can also deliver cluster warheads, the same munitions that have been devastating Israeli cities for 3 weeks. Look at the map. A 4,000-kilometer range from Tehran draws a circle that reaches Paris, London, and most of Europe. Every NATO capital that thought this war was distant, Middle Eastern problem, just realized Iranian missiles could theoretically reach their doorstep. There's your 4,000. Your 4,000. This isn't 4,000. This is only 2,000. 987. That's just 2,000. 4,000 basically covers all of Europe. It covers all of Europe. So that only shows that Trump was correct, because let's face it, you know, none of these nations have the stomach to take a punch from them. So if they thought that they were gearing up and building nuclear weapons, you think they would go to war with them? I don't think so. I don't think they ever would. I don't know why he shares this out also. I don't know what we're supposed to I don't know what we're getting from this. I don't know. So but whatever I got out of it, you got at least as much, if not more. I'm very enthused to hear that we're talking about getting out. I think it's really important we get out of there. And while if you're watching on social media, it seems as if MAGA is, 50-50 split on this, more and more polling reports come out that folks are really much more in Trump's camp on this. Among Republicans, you agree with Trump or Carson and Megyn Kelly on foreign policy views. Trump 84%, Carlson 6%. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, more people are acknowledging President Trump was right all along after Iran proved their missiles could reach London, Paris, and Berlin. That was an escalation that not only stunned the U.S., but the entire world. Trump warned everyone. Let's check out this report.
One of the things we hear a lot about in these conflicts is an escalation ladder. And when Iran fired the intermediate range ballistic missiles at Diego Garcia that Trey mentioned, 4,000 kilometers from Iran, that was an escalation that not only stunned the U.S., but the entire world, because Iran had not publicly stated that they had anything that could go more than 2,000 kilometers. And yet here now we know they have two 4,000 kilometer range intermediate missiles that fortunately did not impact anything, but it's a warning. It's a message that they have these capabilities that they didn't publicly state. In fact, under President Obama's JCPOA, there was no restriction on Iran's missile capabilities. They said they weren't building it. Now we know. And what is the danger? Why is the world on notice? Because look, from Rome, Munich, Paris, London, Berlin, Oslo, all now within this radius, these capitals, in many of these capitals in these countries do not have the missile interceptor technology like we have and like Israel has. So should a nuclear-tipped intermediate range ballistic missile be fired at one of these capitals, it could change the trajectory of humanity as we know it.
It's pretty scary. It's pretty scary. So all of that just only strengthens and fortifies the notion that going in there and removing this regime was a necessary thing, which everyone was on board with until Trump actually did it. I noticed, have you noticed that? Everyone is like, yeah, someone really should do something about this. Someone really should do something about this. But then when Trump does it, they're like, oh my God, can you believe this lunatic did this? Was he crazy? It's like, you all been talking about how this is a necessary thing. But as soon as one man stands up with the cojones to actually do it and does it effectively, you're questioning him? It's backward. It's very, very backward. It's like, but do you think that they're not dangerous? You think they're not someone who's like a massive threat? It's almost baffling to me, the position that some of these people have been taking. It's like the opportunity was there. You weren't going to get a better opportunity. Why would you not do it now? Get it done. This is something that was like a growing threat. It's like, oh yeah, it's not that cancerous. It's like, why are you screwing around with that? Why would you screw around with that? It's not that cancerous, just slightly malignant. And that being said, I do want it to be, you know, in and out. Just because this shouldn't be like what his entire administration ends up being known for. One of the things that we really should be known for is the Save America Act. How's that going? You might be asking yourself. How's the Save America Act going? Well, what do I have here? Let's get that. It's going, I guess. We're getting somewhere. I don't know. We're getting like mild developments. Can we say mild? Being reported out here, Trump trying to put pressure on the Senate to pass the SAVE Act. President Trump just demanded leader John Thune skip the coming Easter recess, keep the Senate in D.C., and force the Democrats to approve the Save America Act as part of a DHS funding agreement. Also, let leader John Thune clearly identify these few Republicans that are voting against America. That's the president I voted for, a fighter. I'll tell you this much. He's calling them to nuke the filibuster. And for John Thune to hold him there through Easter until it's passed. 47 also says he will not negotiate with Democrats until they vote for the bill. I don't think we should make any deal with the crazy country-destroying radical left Democrats unless and until they vote with Republicans to pass the Save America Act. Let's hear from Based Mike Lee.
Well, they say, well, it's a constitutionally protected right. Darn right it is. And it's our job to make sure that that is protected. But the fact that it's a constitutionally protected right in no way, shape, or form means that we have to make it easy to vote and screw the rest. Let's let them cheat. That's not a rational conclusion. Unless, of course, your objective is to facilitate non-citizen fraudulent voting in our elections to the disenfranchisement of actual American citizens who are there to vote. This is not a victimless crime. And shame on my colleagues for suggesting otherwise. Their mantra appears to be, let's make it easy to vote and screw the rest. We don't care. Easy to vote. When you focus obsessively on easy to vote to the exclusion of all other things, you're not just increasing marginally the risk of voter fraud, something that they claim doesn't exist, and that we have invented into existence because of our own tendencies toward paranoid fantasy. But they're also ignoring the fact that when we allow that to happen, we are disenfranchising actual American citizens because their vote matters less. Their vote can be canceled out entirely by 1 or more, or 1,000 or more, or 10,000 or more people who vote in the same jurisdiction who might not be eligible to do so. So yes, it matters. And this is not disenfranchisement. It's a little bit like saying you're excluding entire categories of people by requiring them to prove who they are when they start a job, something that we all have to do every time we start a job. And somehow the American economy continues to function. Somehow men, women, people of every race and combination of races imaginable in America do every single day. Most of us do that many times in a single career. We start a new job, we prove who we are. When we go to the DMV, we have to prove who we are. When we get pulled over in our car, we prove who we are. Why is this any different? Well, they say, well, it's a constitutionally protected right. Darn right it is. And it's our job to make sure that that is protected. But the fact that it's a constitutionally protected right in no way, shape, or form means that we have to make it easy to vote and screw the rest. Let's let them cheat. That's not a rational conclusion.
It's the exact opposite of a rational conclusion, because a rational conclusion would be we need to make sure that that constitutionally protected right is actually something that people have, rather than it being watered down by people thieving votes. The fact that you have a constitutionally protected right to vote is exactly why we need the Save America Act. I want to look at this truth and get your thoughts on what Trump wrote here, because I thought this was interesting. Let's look at the actual language of what he put in here. I don't think we should make any deal with crazy country-destroying radical left Democrats unless and until they vote with Republicans to pass the Save America Act. It is far more important than anything else we are doing in the Senate, and that includes giving these same terrible people, the Democrats who are to blame for this mess, a $5 billion cut in ICE funding. A deal which, even when you disguise something else, is unacceptable to me and the American people, unless, so it would be acceptable to cut $5 billion from ICE if it includes their approval of voter ID with picture, citizenship to vote, no mail-in voting with exceptions, all paper ballots, no men and women's sports, and no transgender mutilization of our precious children. So he's willing to cut $5 billion from ICE if we get these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things. Do you think that that's an offer we should be making? Put it all together and also let Leader Thune clearly identify those few Republicans that are voting against America. They will never be elected again. In other words, lump everything together as one and vote. Kill the filibuster and stay in D.C. for Easter if necessary. Make America great again, President Donald John Trump. My question for you is, are you willing to give up $5 billion in ICE funding in order to get these things? Do you think that makes sense to do? Do you think that that's the right call? I didn't turn on the chat here, which noise. I'm annoyed at myself. I should have done that. That's my question for you. Do you think that's the right call? No, they're just going to flood us with the legals again. We should find out what ICE's budget is so we see what kind of cut that is. Grok, what was ICE's budget in 2025?
Let me check that real quick. ICE's budget for fiscal year 2025 got a massive boost. The base enacted amount, before any extras, was around $10 billion, pretty much in line with recent years. But after Congress passed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act in mid-25, ICE got a $75 billion supplement, available over 4 years, mostly for detention expansion and enforcement. That pushed the total funding available in 2025 to roughly $28.7 billion, adding about $18.7 billion from the supplement to the base $10 billion. Some reports even peg actual spending closer to $12 billion that year, since not all the...
Okay, so if it's actually with the $75 billion boost, the $5 billion doesn't seem to be that impactful. He did talk about bringing ICE in to fix the funding issues with DHS, which I thought was a brilliant move. In case you're wondering what that's about. I had it as ICE airports. There's been all sorts of issues at our airports. Breaking: President Trump says He plans on keeping ICE at airports across the U.S. indefinitely, per News Nation. As per Real Tom Homan, they'll even be checking IDs. This is about to backfire tremendously on Schumer. They had a whatchamacallit. I saw a video, which I didn't save it. Let me see if I can pull it up for you, of the lines at airports now. And this is because they shut down TSA, which obviously runs security for the our airport system, is a subdivision of DHS. DHS has lost its funding thanks to the Democrats. So they don't have proper funding, and TSA hasn't been paid. So there's a lot of strikes, a lot of people not going out to work, people quitting because they're not getting paid. They got bills to pay. You don't understand. Can't wait for Congress to sort this crap out. Let me see if I can find some video for you. I saw some, which is just... see if I can find something for you here where you can get appreciation for just how disastrous.
Your flight is now.
Look at this.
Your flight is now. Your flight is now ready for boarding.
Child, go ahead and stay home. Don't even bother traveling. This is what ATL Airport looks like right now. Hi, Lena.
Your flight is
Unbelievable. 5-hour waits at our airports. So he's planning on remedying this by having ICE go in there, which means they'll be checking IDs. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. Please hit the like button. That'd be very kind of you. Anyhow, I think I'm going to land my plane here because I'm feeling tired and still a little weak. So I thank you all for joining me. I will not be here tomorrow evening. I'm going to see if I can stream tomorrow during the day, but no promises. No promises. Tuesday is more likely. Tomorrow I'm going to be celebrating Lady Logic's birthday with her. It's her Hebrew birthday. So I will be celebrating her birthday with her tomorrow evening. And so I don't expect to be here. I'm taking the night off. And then on Tuesday I have a wedding. So Tuesday night. So I don't know what's going to be with Tuesday, but I'm going to try and get some streaming in some point on Tuesday. Just give you all a breakdown on that. I apologize again that I wasn't here last night or twice today like I was hoping. And hopefully by tomorrow I'm feeling a lot stronger and be able to deliver for you in ways that I trust you count on. So until next time, make sure you follow me over at goodlogic.locals.com. That's goodlogic.locals.com, where you get updates about where I am, when I am, who I am, why I am, all that good stuff. I'll also remind you, please, to make sure that you stay away from the lab meat because it was never meant for you. It's meant for they, them, and do not eat the bugs. Don't do it. Have a good night, everyone. And as always, Godspeed.